Hi, my name is Simon Hedley, known to my clients and partners as a strategic alchemist and an ultimate connector. I'm a chartered accountant who brings together and bridges the worlds of business philosophy, finance, marketing, optimization, ontology, and so much more. Always focused on one thing, the simple idea that can make the difference to people and projects so we can tip the scales in their favor and get them complete. Pause, Stop, Reset is all about the three little words that can make the difference. They have for me and my clients, and I hope they will for you too. During the show, you'll get to learn about my guests' real-life experiences and the insights and lessons they've learned as they've navigated the resets in their personal and business lives, which you'll be able to leverage yourself. So let's start the show. Hello, I'm Simon Hedley, and welcome to today's episode of Pause, Stop, Reset. Today I'm joined by the one and only Dame Doria, DC to some people, Cordova. That's Dame Doria Cordova. She has directly impacted over 200,000 entrepreneurs worldwide through her flagship program, Money in You, and many millions more through stellar graduates like Robert Kiyosaki, Tony Robbins, Jack Canfield, and so many others. She's a long-standing advocate for real wealth creation through socially responsible ventures and a real legacy builder, inspiring leaders to align profit with purpose for global transformation. And she's been doing this for decades and decades. Before I was even born, I think. She's an absolute legend, a good friend of ours and the family. So Doria, welcome to the show. Welcome to Pause, Stop, Reset.
Aloha. It's so nice to be with all of you.
I'm really looking forward to this. That you and I were live in Puerto Rico last year, and you're one of those people who most of us in the West hasn't really touched into, because you've been out in Asia a lot, right, for a long time. And it's an international global world, but you've been out in the Far East for a long time doing your training. Is that right?
Correct. And also, I am in the background. I am the existential power behind the power. So I chose many decades ago not to be a best-selling author, even though now I do have to publish the Money in You book after 45 years. And so that's why I always get to know the power behind the power.
It's already begun. This is experiential learning that you're famous for. And let's start with the first question we love to ask our guests, which is, people that may not know you that well, haven't come up with your resets, who are you and what are you focusing on today?
Well, I am known as being the OG, one of the pioneers of an industry that we named, and a lot of people don't know, but they are in it. And it is the entrepreneurial, experiential, transformational training industry. Pretty much, you could consider this beautiful show part of that. And my mentors, a gentleman by the name of Marshall Thurber, an off-the-chart genius attorney, very successful, and his business partner started the first business school for entrepreneurs of its kind in 1978, based on a real business in San Francisco. And it was a combination of traditional business tools and what used to be called human potential movement teachings, now would be called mindset work. And I attended that first business school, and it created a whole new paradigm of training people about money, business, cash flow, entrepreneurship, and making a difference, creating impact, good impact. And through a series of circumstances, it gets a little bit into the spiritual side, I ended up with this business and been leading it for 45 years. And the result of it is really beyond magical, with my old business partner, Robert Kiyosaki, with the book, the writer, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That first book is the essence of the Money in You program. So we have touched the lives of hundreds of millions of people through them, Tony Robbins and our other very famous Money in You graduates. But then there is a whole lot of other people that you've never heard of that have gone on to be inspired to create an economic engine, creating wealth, and doing good. And that's the essence of what I am, or who I am.
We said we're going to go off script, and you are the off script woman, the rock star of that. And I mentioned earlier before the show started, behind you is a Buckminster Fuller spaceship Earth map. And then we spoke about it. You're like, oh, I know Bucky's work. Can you just touch on Bucky for a bit before we go a bit further? Because I think that would be a fun place sort of to presence in the conversation, if we may.
Actually, I knew Bucky. We studied under him for 6 years, and he inspired me in 1977 when I was 27 years old, when I heard him speak about sufficiency. So he was the most beautiful human that taught many of us and inspired millions and millions of us to move our world from scarcity to sufficiency, which leads to abundance. Buckminster Fuller is very well known for his geodesic dome, the architecture around those models. There were many different models, but that's what he's known for in the world. He's also known for coining the word synergy and the word spaceship Earth, inspire Walt Disney to create, beautiful parks like, what is it called? Epoch Center in Orlando. And he also inspired many to study generalized principles that occur in nature, physics principles. And my mentor, Marshall Thurber, put those principles to work on how it applies to human beings. So Buckminster Fuller is one of our greatest inspiration out of 4 major mentors that inspire our work. Bucky is the number one. And we had him in our business school for entrepreneurs. He was always, always curious on how his principles could be applied to business, because he was not crazy about business. He called the big companies, corporations and business owners, and the original American industrialists. He called them the great white pirates that take advantage of the regular men. I mean, if Buckminster Fuller were around right now, I wonder what he would think. He would call them the great white pirates. So he is somebody that inspired me to commit my life to the betterment of humanity, and particularly the eradication of poverty and hunger by transforming educational systems so we can educate the young, we can educate entrepreneurs, the young children, about what they really need to know, including financial literacy. So he's a great inspiration of ours.
Well, thank you for bringing Bucky back onto the conversation. He's been one of my indirect mentors for obvious reasons. I was sort of born in 78, so I just came into this bubble. And later on in the show, I think we'll hopefully come back to it, of like why with all this great mindset and work that's been done, we haven't crossed the measures yet. But let's save that for later. Calling it to you and the Doria conversation, right? So if you look on your life up till now, what have been the biggest sort of shifts and resets you've had to navigate and been through?
Well, probably the biggest one was when I was 26 years old, and I was a very successful professional in the legal system. I was an official court reporter in the court systems of Los Angeles, California. Same building, O.J. Simpson case, if you ever see that. Every day they used to go to the CCB building. It was called the Criminal Court building. And I was very successful, very beautiful, very young. It was the 70s. And I had everything that a human could ever want to be happy. And I was very unhappy because I had experienced a lot of loss and pain at 18 years old and for 8 years. So where does a hip girl with money and looks, where does she go to be depressed? She goes to Hawaii. And so I moved to Hawaii, and I was a court reporter, an official court reporter there. And I had an enlightenment experience in September of 1976 at the young 26-year-old age. And that pivoted me to going within. Since all the external was not working for me, I had no other choice because I had this profound experience. And then that's what always happens when you kind of open up to looking within. I ran into the leaders of EST at the time, which was the predecessor of Landmark Education today. And it was a case after my enlightenment experience, I moved from the island of Maui back to Honolulu, the island of Oahu. And my first case was the state of Hawaii versus the EST organization for practicing psychology without a license. And I met the leaders there. And of course, within 5 minutes, they had enrolled me into my first human potential program, working with self-mastery. And I had such a profound shift there a month later. And then it was when I discovered that I had no control over anything. Not really. I mean, we humans think we have control over so many things, and we do, of course. We do on many, many things. But the world hands us some doozies sometimes, some major lemons. And I had experienced so much sadness and loss with the loss of my beloved, 2 miscarriages, many friends who had died in 3 years, from 18 years old to 21 years old. I was so heartbroken. I was a broken human being that looked beautiful. And when I discovered that the only control I had was my own consciousness, I committed to spending the rest of my life working on my consciousness. But because I had that legal background and I had an entrepreneurial background from my family, and I had an understanding already that money was not going to be the thing that was going to make me happy, it was the perfect storm, the perfect formula for me to have met Buckminster Fuller within months of that experience, and him just kind of grounding. So that was my second major thing, him grounding that there was enough resources, enough water, enough food, enough electricity that if shared correctly, and you could do it profitably, we could solve some of the world's biggest problems. And that's what I committed to, without realizing the vehicle was going to be entrepreneurial trainings. A lot of times you don't know how you're going to actualize your gift. I had no idea. And because when I attended the first business school, I had another epiphany that work had been created for me to have a job. And those are kind of like the 3 big things. And there are others, but those are the major ones that got me here.
I love it. And I love that you had the lived experience from a real background, right? You weren't going in there, no offense, non-educated. You were a smart cookie. You had that legal background. So you're bringing that frame to this work. I came from an audit and banking background to human potential, ontology work, Buckminster Fuller's work. So I see a different angle that most just go, that's a nice idea, not realizing how much Bucky had really thought and developed it through. And sadly, most of his students aren't good at teaching Bucky. And his books are really dense, right? I love Bucky's work, but they're hard to read.
Unless you are a genius, you have to read it with a group led by a genius. I can tell you 2 or 3, 9 Chains to the Moon, a bunch of little essays. That's easy to read. Stretcher Scroll, which he wrote for his grandchildren, is really easy to read. And then he has another, I believe, children's book. That's it. The rest of his 30 plus books is genius quality.
Yeah. And what's really fascinating for me is most don't even know it exists. So he's one of those people that is sort of in our history and yet has sort of vanished, like Jim Rohn. Did you and Jim Rohn ever connect, by the way, on the travels, on the journeys?
No, we didn't, because I was too young, but I learned all about Jim Rohn's from Tony Robbins, when he attended Money and You, and that was his hero. And I read the books, and but I was too busy, and I had Bucky around me at the time. I wasn't looking for anybody else. But I was just going to say very quickly, Buckminster Fuller actually is becoming more and more popular. There is a whole group of people there. Once you start talking Buckminster Fuller, you're going to find millions of people. I mean, I had the head of a very big, an industrialist, the head of a ministry in Malaysia, that came running over to me at a party, at a Ramadan party. And he said, somebody just told me that you knew Buckminster Fuller. And then I said, yes. And he goes, can I touch you? Muslim. And I said, sure. And he just kind of like touched my arm very slightly. He goes, I cannot believe you met Buckminster Fuller. And I said, I did. And then he says, can we just get together and have a conversation about that? And I said, sure, of course. And that has happened to me dozens and dozens of times that people want to have tea, coffee, dinner, or just a Zoom meeting and ask me a million questions about being around Buckminster Fuller. People are rabid fans of his once they get into his intelligence. And very quickly, for those of you that don't know Bucky, he was the one that taught us that we have a brain that once we die, you can open it up, put it in a bottle, carry it with you, put it in a jar, and your brain can sit there. And then there is the mind. So what you want to do is you want to take in as much information as you can, and the mind connects the dots. That is what intelligence is. So that's why educating yourself, listening to programs like this is so crucial, because you take in all this information. Like my beloved Chris, he is German, reads everything, and then 6 months later, years later, the dots will connect. And that is intelligence. So read, study, don't stop. It keeps you young. And then when the right time comes in, when the right situation comes in, the dots will connect themselves, because it is the greatest intelligence in the universe, much bigger than AI. You know, people are so hyped up about AI. And I get it, and I love it, and we use it. And my beloved is an AI expert, right? He's known about AI for 40 years. But he like we are the ultimate AI. It's like we are it. And so when Buckminster Fuller taught us that when you connect the dots, then you begin to be able to design systems, to be able to see the world very differently, to begin to see solutions. And if every human being on planet Earth got in touch with what their gifts are for them, we would not have any problems, the world problems, because inherently every human would tap into their brilliance and come up with the solutions and create systems that would benefit everyone concerned. And that is his key teaching.
I love it. And we've got some time to explore, and I'm enjoying this because most people I meet don't know what we're talking about. So this is what's fun. I've been championing Bucky now since sort of over a decade or so, and I love that it's coming back. But often they're getting the surface level, not the experiential level. And it wasn't never about, right, the theories. It's actually, how do we live this stuff? How do we get food, water, and shelter? Those billions of people living life with quality of billionaires. And we're in a world where maybe now or this year, there'll be literally liquid trillionaires known about on the planet, which a decade ago was thought impossible by the banker friends we spoke to. I know you've been in circles where people have hundreds of billions of dollars of value in their worlds, and it's such a foreign place for many people. There's just one question I have before we go on. What's your take on the pronoia, paranoia conversation? Like the AI, some of my friends, they talk about sort of the Gaia, the world working for us. Like when I met you in Puerto Rico, there was like, what's she doing here? Because you've been on my sort of radar for a decade, sort of knowing about, never actually crossing paths. So what do you take with the pronoia piece of the conversation?
Well, I feel that my friend Peter Swain in the UK, another beautiful Englishman, Middle Eastern Englishman, he has such a good recommendation, and I love it the most, that there's going to come a point, maybe 20 years from now, when the AI intelligence is going to go, are humans worth keeping or not keeping? So it's our job to barrage, to inundate the waves, the internet, education, programs, businesses with good materials, with good things. So it's going to look into its system and go, oh yeah, they're fabulous human beings. They're taking care of themselves. But if we don't, yeah, we might be exterminated. And, you know, we better shape up. I mean, Buckminster Fuller, he has in the Money and You program, the reason why people are rabid fans of Money and You is because we have integrated Buckminster Fuller teachings into business, entrepreneurship, and into any business can apply this, right? It can apply the principles to make the world work for 100% of humanity. And the thing is that 99.99% of humans are good people. They're very, very good people. But the challenge is that we are educated to have behavior that is so horrific. And so and even now you actually see it in our country on the level of behavior that is just deteriorating, whether we like it or not, is deteriorating at a massive scale. But at the same time, there's a whole other group of people that are uplifting, and that is it is my purpose, to uplift humanity's consciousness through socially responsible business. So what we're doing is that we are filling the world. We are just planting squillions of seeds to make sure that we are making the world work. And even if you don't see it right now, it is working. Even though right now there seems to be all these things that are not quite kosher, there are a lot of really good things happening. And because of the way that the press and the best marketers and the neurolinguistic programmers have found that people really react to fear. I mean, I cannot believe what happens even in my industry. Like if I just tell people, look, I'm going to be around for 1,000 years. Hopefully Money and You will not be needed, but we love learning so much that we'll still have it. So yeah, you don't have to rush to attend the program. So people just go, oh, I don't have to attend the program. The minute that I put a deadline, the minute that I create scarcity, it's like all these enrollments come in. And my marketer friends who have tremendous hearts, they go, this is how humans behave. This is like they react to fear. So one of our jobs is now to create this new paradigm that we react to goodness. Like I have been doing that for 46 years, but there's a lot of people on planet Earth that don't. So us doing this beautiful podcast, it may seem really simple, but the precessional effects, which is a generalized principle that Bucky taught us, the physics of ripple effects, we're just dropping little pebbles into the lake. And then you see this ripple effects. So this particular conversation, this sweet little conversation we're having, could be heard by the next Buckminster Fuller, a young boy or girl. And they go, oh, I'm so inspired. Oh, let me go look at that. Oh, and something opens up about him. And that is our job. Our job is not to try to figure out what the result is going to be. But when you go into the essence of integrity, when you go into the essence of true education, when you really educate people into bringing out themselves, their gifts in whatever industry, in whatever field, then we are going to have AI really love us 20 years from now. That's our job. I've been doing it officially for 45 years. Unofficially, I've been doing it for 48 years. So what we want to do is we want to just keep doing that. And for me, whenever I feel fear, it's something within, it's an inside job. And so I feel fear, of course. I'm a human. There's certain things that really make me sad. The thought that my 99-year-old mama is going to leave this world any day, or maybe in 5 years' time, but it's getting close, right? That makes me sad. That makes me feel fear. But it's just an emotion. And emotions pass. And the more that you work on self-mastery, the more that you will be able to just experience this amazing peace. So anytime anything outside of us perturbate us. And that's one of the key teachings in the Money and You program, is perturbation. Ilya Prigogine won a Nobel Prize in 1977 for chemistry, dissipative structures. Again, Marshall Thurber applied it to human behavior. When you feel perturbed, go inside and work on it and shift it. And then the perturbation will dissipate. And then you'll feel perturbation again, and then you do it again until you get to a place where you no longer will have fears that are made up. And then I don't know if we can ever master the reptilian brain. I don't know. I don't know if we can ever stop being afraid of those things that our animalistic aspects of ourselves fear. But certainly when we learn how to take a deep breath 3 times, we can shift the state, like our great friend, Tony Robbins, teaches so much. And then we come to center and we move on. We are in a learning planet. We are spiritual beings having a physical experience. So might as well go within and then tackle yourself first, and then begin to solve those problems. And you want to be a billionaire? You want to be the first trillionaire? Solve a major world problem. You know how much money there is? And by the way, for billionaires hearing this, you know how much money there is in solving hunger? You will make money in everything, not only food and water, electricity, roads, education. You name all the major industries, they are all going to be involved in solving world hunger. So go be a trillionaire solving a big problem.
Well, you brought up my favorite word. Firstly, this is why we love Doria. It's always funny calling her Doria, right? It's Dame Doria Cordova. But no, this is the whole point, right? This is the living embodiment of work, not the reading out of a book stuff. And I love this because the way you explain it makes sense and it's clear. And I agree with you 100%. Like this is the good stuff. I have one question, actually, my friend Rachel asked me to ask, and then maybe a good time, which is, where does integrity, marketing, and business fit in the modern world, right? Bucky's favorite word, integrity. Without integrity, nothing works. The reason, by the way, most people buy with fake scarcity is because they've been burnt growing up. That's a learnt behavior. The child doesn't need it, but having been badly done, then we sort of get into that's how it works. So this is a really strange thing. I've been around digital marketing over 25 years now. The things that we thought were helping have actually made it good and bad in some areas. And it isn't this sort of open playing field, right? There's always sort of a bait and switch of hide and seek. Now, even if I want to with this show, this is what we're going to cover. They're not going to get the consequences of watching the show until they watch the show. So if I want to be like, if you watch this for free, you'll get this. I can't even do that with integrity, really. I'm being a bit flippant with it. What's your take on integrity in sort of the marketing space?
98% is, but I wouldn't call it out of integrity. I would call it unethical. Okay, so let me just talk about integrity for a minute. Buckminster Fuller's definition of integrity is that which it holds its shape. That is his word. That is integrity. And he said that everything has integrity, especially in the invisible. All human beings have integrity. We are made of integrity the same way that we are love, we are integrity. We are taught certain behaviors, and particularly, and it's so funny because he was a marketer from the UK, which I think is kind of funny. I won't mention his name, did this whole thing around me. And he is like, he caught himself. He didn't realize who he was talking to. And he did this whole dog and pony show around me. And then he didn't have me in his show because I didn't have enough followers. And I have to admit, I fibbed a little. And I only talked about a certain number of followers without him realizing that I have promoting partners and some of the biggest names I have, if I ask them to do a mailing, they will do it, blah, blah, blah. I have a huge following if I want to. And that is not my thing. So I don't really talk about it, show it, or anything like that. And then when he realized that the people that he was having in his stage, 90% of them I had trained and they were Money and You graduates, he was like mortified. So integrity is another inside job. And this is the thing. I have been around for 45 years and I have seen so many people come and go. Big names that they were the best closers on the planet. I mean, I had one major Money and You graduate, not Tony Robbins. I want to make it very clear. And I went to one of his events, and as soon as he saw me, he kind of turned white. And my understanding is that he changed the script quite a bit because I was in the room. But he still did his sales job. And I wanted to run to the back of the room and buy it.
Love that. Yeah.
And the reason is because it was so good at pulling every heartstring.
Pressing the buttons and all the levers and dials, emotionally there, you're visioning it, you're like, yep, this is great.
Oh my God, I got to have it, right? So what I have learned to share with people is when you get that feeling, it's official. You're being manipulated. It is official. Now, the truth is that they would collect $3 million on a free weekend, and then they would get 80% returns because people would kind of wake up a week later. And then when it really hit reality, it's like, why did I buy that? Like people kind of woke up. And then that particular person they sold their company for this amount of money. They really didn't. And this happened. And then it kind of disappeared. And they're kind of coming back right now. That is an example of dozens and dozens and dozens. How you can tell people's work if you want to be, if you want to have good discernment about it, is good old-fashioned business. How long have they been around? What is their reputation? Go and check them out and go and see what the results that others have created with those teachings. Because when you're really making a difference, you let your customers, your graduates do the raving for you. And so if you just have somebody, like how many people are right now all pitching AI?
Oh, thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands. Overnight experts. Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah. Now, I happen to love one of them, which is, I don't know if I can say his name, but that's my UK.
You're welcome to anything you like, yeah.
Well, it's, Peter Swain.
Peter's great. Peter's a very smart cookie, very smart guy.
Oh my God. I mean, he came in and helped me with marketing that was appropriate for me. It was like, he knows me. He's my good friend. We're very good pals. And he knows me and he go, oh, no, that's not going to work. No, that's not going to work. That's not going to work. But this will work and this would, and then it has to be true. Like if I say Money and You is going to be worth this much until this date, that's what it is. And then after that, I have to raise the prices a little bit so that I don't keep dipping into my retirement account. I do have to pay for bills. So every human knows that as business people, we need to have a margin of profit. We know that. But you have these people now, particularly in the training industry, in the marketing of training companies, that are gigs. They are gigapreneurs, and they go by gigs. They don't have a true economic engine. So when they talk about, look, I brought in $3 million in 24 hours, then you go, okay, now how much of that were you able to keep? What did you use with that money? How many people did you have to pay your 50%, commissions and all this and that? So, they might have made $100,000, which is still a lot of money, but they spend 2.9 million of that 3 million on expenses. So for people that don't know the business, you can't go look at people's accounting. What you want to do is you want to have good old fashioned. Who are they? How long have they been around? What are the results that they have created? So that's why I chose to open up the North American market because I feel that I need to bring back basic principles. So these people, so we're going to take the example of the guy that I told you that was one of the best salespeople that I ever saw. And again, it's not Tony Robbins. He had to take off for quite a few years. And I think that he looked within and went, oh, I don't want to be known as that kind of a person. Let me come back into the market and show them who I really am, which is an integrous human being. I just got carried away. I mean, I did all these things. This is what everybody I thought was doing. I didn't know that I was the leader of it, blah, blah, blah. And with all those learning experiences. So he's coming back in a way almost to do a ho'oponopono, a forgiveness process. So we are not the ethics officers of the universe. Even though I do call some of them up, especially when Money and New Graduates begin to do some shady little things, I call them up and I go, okay, I love you. You're young. I just want to let you know, do you want to be in this business as long as I have been, or do you just want to be overnight wonder? And they go, oh, no, I definitely want to create a legacy and economic engine. Great. Just correct that. Oh, thanks, Mom. I will do that. And so they correct, because a lot of that comes from inexperience and wanting to become zillionaires overnight. So have an understanding of this. Most people become multimillionaires in their 50s. Most people. So this whole thing about influencers, TikTok, marketing, and all of this. And I know, because I know some of them. I was talking to this couple just recently. They have over 3 million followers. They have no economic engine around them. They don't know what to do. And then there's all these people that want to do these things that are very unethical, and they're very ethical human beings. And so they are trying to get to Money and You so that they can learn how to create an economic engine that truly espouses traditional business principles. Gigapreneurship is not going to replace what has worked for thousands of years. I give you something that adds value to your life. You give me something. It just so happens that now it's money. You give me crap, I give you crap, you give me your money. No, I'm not going to last. So go back to basics. Your grandmother was right. I could be your grandmother in my 70s. Your mom was right. There are certain basics. So absolutely, it has gotten completely out of control, our industry. And part of why I'm going to spend the next 5 years before I move completely into philanthropy, bringing Money and You and fantastic work for people to really understand how to do ethical entrepreneurship. And yes, there are times when you do have to use certain deadlines because they are true, but to put the fear of God into people is just activating more fear. Do you really want to do that? If I am making a difference to you right now, you're listening to me, especially you know who you are, which I think I'll send him this recording. You're going to be an overnight wonder.
No, you're spot on. And just, we're going to add this into the conversation. You say we're not the integrity police of the universe. That's not the job, right? Not everybody has the common sense to know the games. Part of why you can talk about it the way I did, I worked from banking, went into the industry and got eaten alive, not knowing the back deals and the side deals. And unfortunately, even the success stories, you often don't know that they're related or they're dating each other's friends. There's this sort of, they've got 5 case studies. Yes. And they worked together for 10, 15 years and they all owe each other money and there's other stuff going on. So I'm not here with a $1 billion billionaire today. I'm the opposite. I got badly burnt 3 or 4 times the last few years, including by people that I thought were long-standing trusted friends, but no, they've always been a bit off. So it's sometimes hard to have that discernment until you've got the discernment, right? The reason I know you know what you're talking about is you've been doing this a long time. This isn't our first conversation. And it takes time to really live this stuff and experience it. And then this question of real economic engines, because I think most of us have got hoodwinked by the last 25 years of stuff that's doing stuff that isn't really necessary, doesn't really create real value in the real world, but seemingly is creating stuff, right? The joy of the TikTok videos, I'm sure at some point the AI will look back and go, why did you guys do all that for 5 years? Like the most insane things to try and get attention. I love Gary Vee. I had some great conversations, but more and more I'm like, what you're teaching has people doing insane things, and they're like gambling with their life to try and get a viral video, to try and one day get paid. And it isn't a business, but it seems like it sort of the outside, especially when others are making millions out of it. Unless you've got the success measure, you can't really seemingly have an adult conversation like, well, you're wrong. They've got millions. You're an idiot. Listen to them. It's like that actually isn't the whole story, but it works for some people. That's my soapbox.
Oh, totally. I mean, the thing is, again, we have to go back to basics. But one of the things, so you see it right behind here. This is one of the biggest teachings of Money and You, and it's called the fruitful theory of business. And we get into a whole conversation in the Money and You program. This is the one that many people love. And many people cry during this time because they go, this is what I didn't do. You have to have clear rules of the game. If you go back and look at these people that you had these learning experiences with, you didn't have clear rules of the game on everything. And most importantly, and this is where my legal background comes in, you didn't have exit agreements. And exit agreements are the most important thing in any business relationship, whether it's a joint venture, a lifetime relationship in business, or you're going to do just a one-time only. You have to figure out what's the purpose of the relationship, of the joint venture, what is the mission, what are the clear rules of the game, what are going to be the exit agreements, and who is going to do what is the valuable final product, and how long is it for? And all the derivatives, all the precession effects, all the ripple effects, all the things that are going to come out of that, who owns what? So let's say that we are in the training business, right? I have a whole curriculum. If I do a joint venture with someone, if we're going to create a brand new product together that's related to that particular, whatever the joint venture is, then how long is that for? And all the things that I just named, and who owns the intellectual property, who owns all of that, and when are you going to sell the business? Okay, so individually, you have to be very clear. So one of my favorite books, Sharon Lecter, wrote a book with this wonderful woman, and I'm trying to remember her name. It's called Exit Rich. I love that book. And the reason is because when I started off 45 years ago, Marshall Thurber was an attorney. I had a legal background. I was going to grow up to be an attorney. We chose the business model. I chose, for me, the business model, which was going to be licensing. I had wanted to do franchising, that because it looked much more profitable. And Marshall says, Dee, you love freedom. That's your number one value. He knew that. And you're not going to want to be in an office managing and taking care of all of this. Because, are you familiar with licensing? I said, am I familiar with licensing? I'm a court reporter. He goes, I think licensing is better. Greatest advice ever, right? So I have the most successful licensing training company around, longest, not huge, but more than enough for me, that now I license, and that's what is in the Asia Pacific region. Now I'm in North America, and this is what we all have to figure out. What is going to be your business model? So in North America, it may be a different business model, but I'm already handled in Asia Pacific for a few lifetimes. So I have the luxury to go, I can take my time and figure out how I want to do North America. Well, North America is very different. Europe is very different. So what's the business model there? And now we are in Harvard Business School conversations. Now I can talk to the heads of universities. They know, I know, I've talked to them, which is like, okay, let's talk business. And then we go into all the traditional, but then they are keeping an eye because they're looking at all this marketing going on, the marketing that you're talking about. Then they kind of see it for a while and they see it as a gigpreneur thing. And no, that's not going to sell. That's not going to sell. Anytime that you go near any traditional business school, it's all about selling your company. It's all about, so since 1980, I've said I'm going to sell my company in 5 years, in 5 years, 5 years. Well, 45 years later, I'm truly going to do it in 45 years because I would have been doing this for 50 years, right? Now it's like all the elements. So that is the difference between a very solid economic engine as opposed to a gig. So realize, are you doing just a gig or are you creating that economic engine? And if you're going to create an economic engine, it requires for you to have very clear rules of the game and all the things that we mentioned earlier. So you, Simon, because you're a very intelligent human being with a background in banking, now you go back to your roots. You go back to your basic and go, okay, if I were in that industry, what would I have done differently? You would have done a few things differently. So the game doesn't change, but the industry that we are in is almost like probably snake oil industry in 1925.
Yep.
Right now, but it cleanses itself out. And you see the people that have been around and you see us kind of like racing to the top and people go 45 years. It's like, what have you been doing? It's like the same thing over and over again. I'm a bit of a turtle. You're really quiet. And those are all the different choices that a human has to take in when you are creating a business and creating your wealth and doing good.
No, I love it. And I've been doing stuff since 2002. I did Werner's course in London the weekend after 9/11. And that's what got me into some of these games about making the difference. What's fascinating, by the way, it wasn't the exits. It's the people I did business with. They managed, despite my chartered accountant audit background, I didn't understand they were deliberately signing a contract they weren't going to keep on day one and never intended to. So literally it was like you're buying what you think is an apple, but it's a poison rat. It's like that. And you think you've done the testing. And I do think there's more of that coming. But also, as you say, there's more of, we used to call them wisdom keepers, people like yourself showing up. And then you get more of that tribe finding each other. But it can be hard to get through the noise. And the person asked the question, he's got some young kids. They're seeing the YouTube videos with millions of views and well-known name-building authors. It's very hard to counter, to keep that sort of no assumptions brain on, that legal brain, and just really sit there, especially when you live into a world where not everything is obvious at hello. You know what I mean? Like when my friend Tom met you, he didn't really know who you were the way I knew who you were. And I'm still learning who you are today. It's the whole point of the show, right? But not everybody understands when you get around, I call them type 4 people who are a little bit interesting and how they sit in that wider world, that relation to capital stuff. So I love what you're sharing. This is awesome. One of the questions I do have, and I have a sense of the answer already, which of these three things do you find hardest? Do you find it easy to take a pause, to stop, or to reset? Which is your hardest thing for you? Pausing, stopping, or resetting?
Stopping.
Which is a great thing given your mission, right? Like keep going, keep going, keep going. Are you good at taking care of yourself? Like obviously there's energy and there's nurturing, but navigating that too?
Oh, absolutely. That is my superpower. I mean, you're looking at somebody with no surgery. Okay. This is not, I know I live in Southern California. People go, man, you got a great plastic surgeon. No, I actually don't. This is the good life. This is living, meditating twice a day, being very disciplined. In my Money and You Distinctions program, I actually include my daily disciplines, and I just realized I have to redo them because I have a few more. I'm very disciplined. I do certain things, and I'm also naughty. I do have pizza. I do have, but I don't drink alcohol. Obviously, I don't smoke, and I haven't eaten meat in 44 years, and I stopped eating chicken. Anything that has like hormones and has additives that my body's going to have to fight off, that's what things like alcohol that give you wrinkles and damage your liver and damage your organs. You have to stop that, because that is going to be something that you really are going to need as you progress in life. And we're living longer and longer. I have a 99-year-old mother. Sadly, she, kicked into dementia during COVID, which so many people did. We didn't know that isolation was going to do that to so many people. But had it not been for COVID, Mama would still be very healthy. And honestly, she could leave us tomorrow. She could leave us in 5 years. People are living over 100, many, many people. So the thing for me is that self-care that's why it's called money and you. It's the you part that you are in charge of. Everything else can be handled. You can hire people, you can do joint ventures with people, you can do all kinds of things. Keep studying with me and many of the people that I recommend. Go to Fridays with Doria. Fridays with Doria has free education with many of my close friends. Some of them are very famous, some of them are very successful. You never heard of them, but you'll figure out how successful they are. A few billionaires in there. They are sharing what they did, right? So you learn from masters. And if you go to moneyandyou.com, download for free my little booklet. It's called Business Success Model. And so you learn from experts and masters. You create leverage. You create a niche, which you leverage through systems, through an aligned team. You create synergy and you create results. Very simple. That is a basic business model that most businesses run. That's the contextualization if you're going to be successful. But the biggest thing now is that you have to have self-care. And also you do have to be involved in those things that matter to those whom you love. So if you have children, if you have grandchildren, you have to be very vigilant of all the things that sadly you see people, I didn't know that my child was blah, blah until it was too late. I think we go back to the basics. And I think this comes with my age. This comes with age, you guys. We all going to be talking like this at my age. It's like discipline is very important, even to teach children. What is this thing about letting a 12-year-old tell you what to do to a parent? You are doing that child no favors by not teaching them discipline, by not teaching them how tough the world really is. So it's like self-care, taking care of self is crucial, and of your family, and to really understand that responsibility of bringing a child into this world or adopting a child, or if you have grandchildren, because these are little beings that are relying on you, on your consciousness, how they're going to be shaped. So don't get me started on that, because we'll spend another hour.
I know. We're going to wrap up soon. I appreciate the time, and maybe a second conversation in the new year sometime would be fun. When you went through your really challenging time, right, before you met these guys and people and women, I'm sure, that helped sort of upgrade your thinking and experiential transformations, what helped you navigate the resets? What got you through the hard times?
Oh gosh, no, I was on automatic. And when I talk to young people, I always tell them that I always made very tough choices that a lot of my friends who died or ended up in jail didn't. So you always look at, okay, like from the time I was 18 until I was 21, a lot of my friends died from drugs and from being in the wrong place, a couple of them killed, and drownings and things like that. And they were so beautiful. And we didn't have any of the benefits of everything that we're talking about right now, this industry that can save so many people. And I personally, because of my background in legal, I knew that if I did certain things, I could end up in jail or die. Most people don't have that distinctions. A lot of people just want to get by. Look, don't do anything illegal. You're going to get caught. I'm sorry. Don't even bother. Whether it has to do with business, taxes, or thinking that you can carry a kilo, whatever, across the border. None of that. Let it go. You'll end up in jail and worse, right? But the thing that really got me through my biggest financial learning experience when I was in my 40s, the only one, knock on wood, that I've had, was during the Asian financial crisis, was access. Access is my new definition of wealth. And I had access to support, access to expert, access to people that could get me back on my feet, access to knowledge that helped me, access to experts that helped me. And so create a very solid foundation of accessibility for you to get you out of trouble. And that was the biggest, the only, and please God, let it be the only one I have this life. Because that was no fun. It was horrible. And the truth is, a lot of it was in my mind, because my mentor, one of my mentors, who's now an angel, Bill Galt, who was a master, right? And he would say to me, and I was called DC then, DC, you still have all the intellectual properties to all your work. Yes, I do. You still have your beautiful oceanfront condo in San Diego. Yes, I do. You still have your Mercedes. You still have one of your Rolexes. You still have one of your diamonds. You have me and all these people that are willing to support you. Why are you so upset? And then it was like, because every plug had been pulled from my unconscious of every fear I had ever had on what would happen if I lost everything. And even though I hadn't, I thought I did, because I didn't have my $100,000 a month revenues coming in. And it was, then I had to go internal. I had to, an inside job, I had to go work on myself, which I did for 3 years. And then I came out of it and created what is now, I've been doing beautifully for the last 22, 23 years in my brand new engine. And now I'm creating another one. But all those things, it's not just one thing, but it's always an inside job. I don't know. I wish I could just have a magic wand, and every human that listens to me could only get that it's all happening within. And then from there, you begin to see all the opportunities. And one last thing, when you are up against the wall and you think that you have zero choices, that you are so up against the wall, you take 3 deep breaths and you make up 10 different exits, 10 different choices, even if you make them up. And the ultimate one is that you can always get up and leave and start again. That has always been, this is going to make you laugh. I have an inner child. I'm very aware of my inner child. I have a beautiful inner child. Her name is Doricita, my 3-year-old. And one time I was in the middle of something really upsetting, and my inner child screamed at me, "We have money. Get up right now, and we can afford anything. Get up right now, leave this room, go outside, hire whatever, hire a car, hire an airplane, freaking get us to an airport right now." And it was so funny. And it was hilarious because it was happening all in my head. And I went, oh my God, she's right. Lovingly, very responsibly, completed that conversation, walked out the door, took a deep breath and go, where are we going? And this is why you want to handle your financial independence. Because when you have the freedom financially to be able to do whatever you need to do, those experiences up against the wall are going to diminish, but it's not going to bring you happiness. That's an inside job, but it sure helps. So do handle your finances.
No, completely. And especially in the modern world, net assets isn't liquidity. And the amount of money that used to be sort of you're handled doesn't work the way it used to work. It's a really interesting time. We won't get into that sort of economic future we're living into, but it's a really different time for what matters. And great. You've covered so much real value here. If we have time, one heavy question, and then we'll wrap up if that's okay. So
you already asked me some heavy questions.
This is the warm up. So what I'm present to, because you've been around amazing work, doing great work, and I've been like generally, I'd say committed, but not as crazy committed as Bucky was in some ways, right? To making the difference. Everybody having food, water, and shelter, solutions being shared. My brain about 2010 got very clear. We had the technology. We had Zoom, we had Clubhouse, we could do things. There was no PayPal when you were starting out, right? Like moving money from the UK to the US, this was really hard. So I think of a website. I got a quote for $1 million website. I can install it in 2 seconds for £1 a year now, right? Like we're in a different time. And yet the measures that matter, mental health, physical health, food being shared, we're not there yet. So here's the question. What do you think it will actually take for us sort of to get it complete? Like to get that in our lifetime, those measures done?
I say humanity. It's going to cost $100 billion to eradicate hunger with sustainable systems that will prevent it from coming back. And I'll tell you very quickly, those stats already exist during COVID after a Clubhouse conversation. I had not looked it up because I have been studying this stuff since 1977 because I was part of the Hunger Project. And then in 2010, I connected again with Lynn Twist of the Soul of Money and became a Pachamama facilitator. And they gave us a lot of stats then. And I said to my beloved, how much would it cost to eradicate hunger today? Being a good German and super researcher, he looks it up. He says, according to what I found today, this was about 3 years ago, he goes, it's about 60 billion. I said, oh, okay, well, everything always costs more, takes longer. So let's make it 100 billion. Okay. And so it was $100 billion. Now, one of my heroes, Ted Turner, I think in 1997, he gave the UN Foundation, he called it the UN Foundation, the grant of $1 billion. That was a lot of money in 1997. So he gave the UN $1 billion. But even billionaires need installments. He paid it in 10 years, 100 million. I happen to have met him. I know his wife, and I also know his children. It's one of the greatest honors. Don't get me started on Ted Turner. He's my hero. So I thought, wait a minute, Ted Turner did it. So how about if we get 100 billionaires that will contribute 1 billion, and they can have installments because this is probably going to take a few years. But the actual eradication can happen very, very quickly because everything is in place. One of the challenges is dealing with warlords, cartels, and we're going to have to pay them off. They're going to have to be paid off. This is part of the human condition. You're not going to go into certain areas of the world and just kind of start feeding people. That's not going to happen. That it's not how it works, not on the ground. But you have all these NGOs. You have all of these people who are expert at it. So what you do is you get the people together that are on the ground and figure out the solutions. And it's not that money is not just going to go for food and water, but it's going to go to all the things that we talked about earlier, building all the roads, building and little by little and having negotiators on the ground that will go, okay, how much is it going to cost me for me to have that road? You can have all your other war things going on. I need that road. How much is it going to cost me? And you pay. You're going to have to pay. I have talked to people that really know this stuff about this. And they go, but no government, no organization is willing to do that. And that is one of the biggest problems. So once you really get into it, and with all these brilliant people, you just have this big group of people that know what they're doing. And then you get the people that know how to handle $100 billion and they have the budgets, they have this, and then you're going to then not, it always gets tricky because They always want to get a return. Even the wealthiest people that have the biggest heart, it's like, well, it would really be nice if I put in $1 billion and I give my Nobel Prize for handling hunger, but it'd be nice if I made some money. Well, then at this point, you have to allow them to have profits from that. And so we have to kind of take our good hat off and go, okay, let them. What we want is to have this problem solved. So a lot of the problems are human problems on people not allowing certain behaviors or not accepting certain things. And meanwhile, we still have all these people with no running water, with no toilets, with no tampons or Tampax for the young girls, fires that inside that kills 1.5 million women from cooking inside when they can have solar cookers. All these little problems that kill and kill and kill people. So it's a new paradigm, and that is totally doable. Everything I have just said, all the people are there. I mean, I meet NGO people that are so smart. I heard about this beautiful man in Venezuela or somewhere, and he was teaching all of these farmers on how to collaborate and support each other through bad winters and all of this. And he's got this whole area in Venezuela, or Ecuador, one of those countries in South America. So what do? We identify those people. We then get his system. We empower him. We take him all over the place. He'll tell us how to do it. And then we get the professional negotiators to do whatever. Like, us humans, we're so resourceful. We can do this. It's just that we just need to transform the thinking, the consciousness, and the deservability, and to get away from that thinking that if we feed everyone on planet Earth, we're going to all starve. That became obsolete in the early 70s. So there are many, many, many people, many very wealthy people that believe that if they were to participate in this, the whole world would be negatively affected. So this is where we need to keep educating the mega rich.
And that leads us to, if somebody's listening and going, I like this person, Doria, I want to learn more, how do they learn more about you? Obviously, moneyandyou.com, that's probably the best place for them to go. Is that right?
Yeah, and they can go to see my funky little one page that for 10 years, that really need to update, me, Doria. They can find me in LinkedIn, Doria Cordova, Dame Doria Cordova. And you can also, it's info@moneyandyou.com. And I always love, Facebook. I have no negative stuff in my Facebook. All good. No, if you disagree with me, don't go someplace else. Okay. So DC Cordova, and I have a lot of free education, but go to fridayswithdoria.com. I really like to send people there because of the education. And we also have some beautiful replays. And once a month, I go into my spiritual side and do Ho'oponopono prayer that we do for ourselves with people keeping us company. I'm not in the business of Ho'oponopono prayers, none of that. We do it for our friends. So I'm really easy to find. Just Google Doria Cordova or Money and You.
Yeah, and as you know, when you do the Ho'oponopono, you're clearing because what there is to do is to clear, right? You're clearing because as you clear on the inner, the outer clears if you believe these things. And I'm guessing you met some lovely kahunas in your time in Hawaii. Is that right?
One, Morna Simeona. One, she's the one that brought Ho'oponopono to the world, and many other kahunas were not happy. But I just want you to know, for those of you that are a fan of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Kiyosaki was my business partner for 9 years. He was around 17 years. And it was not unusual for him to come running in and going, do a Ho'oponopono for my next real estate deal. I go, dude, sit and you do it. It works also around finances.
I've really enjoyed the conversation. I'm really grateful for it. Is there anything else you want to share before we wrap up for today?
The last thing is I want to leave you with Buckminster Fuller's question, since you like Buckminster Fuller so much, and you can download it in my Facebook pages. This is Buckminster Fuller asked us this question, and he said that if we were to create products, services, programs, answering this question, we would definitely create wealth. So this is the question. How do we make the world work for 100% of humanity in the shortest possible time through spontaneous cooperation without any ecological offense, nor the disadvantage of anyone? And so you see it as an example what we've been talking about here today, but also the spontaneous cooperation between us. I'm going to get a copy of this. I'm going to spread it again in all my beautiful platforms. You have access to me. You're spreading it to your all beautiful platforms and your friends. And we live in completely different parts of the world. And we will, because it is so. The ripple effects of this conversation will make a difference. So it doesn't matter how little you do, how big you do, and if you win the Nobel Prize for eradicating hunger, and I'm the one that inspire you, just drop me a little note. I just want to know, just because I get so excited because I have been part of some really big deals in the world, not yet global, but I did have something to do with the country of Bangladesh passing many green laws. That was something that I generated, and it makes me so happy. You're my leverage. If I may say this, particularly to you young people, you're my leverage. I can then wouldn't it be beautiful if we had a world with no hunger and poverty? Come on. Really. Wouldn't it be a beautiful world? We would still probably have all kinds of problems because as human beings love problems, but at least people would be fed and they would have refrigeration for medicines and all those little babies. Come on, we all love babies. Let's do it.
And I'm going to share what Baroness Deborah Dedman Scott shared with us about 6 years ago at an event we did in London. Very small event, 20 people were there. And it's the poverty of hope is the real poverty that we have. That thing about going, pause, I can reset, I can start again. And there are people out there to help. People like yourself are so open to helping, so generous. And you're not doing it with, you now need to go buy my thing at $9.99 every month forever. There isn't an MLM program behind it. Nothing wrong with those things, but actually finding a way to get yourself back into possibility, back into being open and discerning people you do want to work with. And the irony, there's so many that do want to collaborate. Then the question is you say, the games and rules you want to play. So Doria, absolute pleasure today. Thank you so much. And if you've enjoyed the show, check out Money and You, and we'll see you very soon. Thank you.
Aloha.
Once again, I'm Simon Hedley. Thank you for listening to this episode of Pause, Stop, Reset, which is brought to you by the team at simonx.com and published by thesimpleidea.com. So you get maximum value and to access all the bonuses and gifts, make sure to head to pause.reset.com, register and explore the portal. And if you're looking for great people, check out onesmartnetwork.com. If you've enjoyed the show, do give us a positive review, subscribe, and share this episode with friends. I can't wait to share our next episode with you. Till then, remember you can always choose to pause, stop, reset.